All right, welcome to another edition of the Edlow Podcast. Subscribe. I'm excited because I have once again Sean Kanan on, who looks like he just woke up. No, I'm just messing with you.
All right, that's one.
No, no. I'm really grateful you came back on because as we connected over the fact that I am just a huge fan of Karate Kid, Karate Kid 3, and Cobra Kai, and then also just love your kind of your motivational the aspect of your life where you just really provide a lot of motivation, your books you've written. And so glad to have you back, man.
Good to be back, brother.
Yeah. So tell me now, well, first of all, let's talk about you're in this house, you're filming. What are you doing right now? You're doing something with your wife?
Yeah, it's a show that I got brought on to produce, write, and act in. It's called Unsuited. But a guy who turns his back on his family business to pursue his dream of becoming a professional poker player. And
Interesting.
I played this guy like Fast Eddie Felson in The Color of Money and The Hustler, who was once a great poker player and now stakes young poker players. And my wife's she's a producer, writer, and I love the opportunity for us to work together. And so here we are, and we go into production tomorrow.
I want to ask you, I don't know what this is like in Hollywood. Let's just really quick for a minute talk about this. You're working with your wife. You see your wife at home. Is it like a thing where you're like, I'm tired of seeing you all day? Or is it like a situation where you're like, you'd love when you get to work together?
That's so funny that you say that. I know a lot of people think that if you see each other all the time, what do you have to talk about? But she's my best friend. I love working with her. She's a lot smarter than I am, so I keep her around for that. Make me look good. If that isn't enough that we're producing this together, we are putting the absolute final touches. And when I say final touches, I mean hopefully this evening it's going to be done on the third book in the Way of the Cobra series, which is called Way of the Cobra Couples. And of course, to write a book about couples, you need two people. And so Michelle co-authored the book with me, and it's going to be coming out. I think it's probably going to be available for pre-sale in about 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's going to be widely available early October, and it's a terrific book. I'm really excited for people to read it. It's the same structure as Way of the Cobra and Welcome to the Kumite, that I'm the sensei. The belts are divided into chapters, but this time we have two senseis.
That's interesting, man. That actually, I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, I think it's interesting because
good, I know that buy it. I've got 5 kids. All right,
I will buy it. No, it'll be interesting to hear you guys' thoughts on that, especially considering that, it's I know it's for you, it's a second marriage, right? And so there's a lot of complications coming along with that, I'm sure, or at least maybe it makes it a little bit different.
I know a lot of people who their second marriage, statistically, second marriages do worse than first. Okay, that's a fact. But I also know a lot of people who have done a lot of work on themselves as a result of a divorce. I know I did. It's really the catalyst for people to take a hard look at themselves and say, okay, I got to do some work on me. And also, besides that, I know what I do want. I know what I don't want. And that's a lot of what we talk about in the book. I mean, the book is how to have a relationship and be a part of a Cobra couple. But also, if you're not a couple, if you're single, how do you stop wasting time? How do you find somebody that is the right person for you, so that you're not just kind of, look, in your 20s, you're supposed to be with a bunch of people and learn what you want and what you don't want. And that's fine. There's a time for that. But if you've come to the realization that you now want to be in a committed monogamous relationship, you need to do some things differently to find that person. Not the least of which is you have to have done some work in yourself, because I'm a big proponent of the law of vibration, and the vibration that you put out attracts a light vibration. And if you're putting out the vibration that you're young and single and loves to mingle, that's what you're going to attract. But if you're putting out the vibration, hey, you know what, I'm serious, I want to meet somebody that I can really build a life with, that's what you attract.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that go into finding the one for you. And, you have to change some things about how you pursue that. So
Yeah.
that's what we talk about.
No, that sounds awesome. That's really interesting, especially in the context of the way you wrote the first Way of the Cobra book, which I interviewed you on before. So that's gonna be really exciting. So let's jump in now. Cobra Kai. So the last time we talked, you had just came in. You were surprised. You were surprised in that series, and it was really awesome to see you in that. And now you come back for season 6. We've only seen 5 episodes, so we don't know yet what's going to happen in the next 10.
Right.
But give me an idea of what it's like coming on a second time. Differences this time than maybe with the last season when you were on it.
Well, one difference is that I had already worked with Billy in season 5 because that was the first time I ever worked with him. I mean, Billy and I have a pre-existing relationship, but until you work with somebody on camera, you haven't worked with them on camera.
Sure.
It was nice to know that season 5, Mike Barnes was really well received. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of nice coming into the 6th season, feeling like, hey, you know what? They liked what I did last time. It gives you a sense of confidence and comfortableness.
Yeah.
You don't want to be comfortable to the point of not creating something new and exciting and feeling like you're coasting. It's not that. It's just, okay, they dig what I'm doing, and you feel like you've got kind of an atmosphere that's supportive of what you're doing, which effectively as an actor allows you to take more chances.
So you think it might have been a little bit better just because now you kind of knew what to expect when you came in, kind of what you were going to do, like the chemistry?
I knew who the players were. I worked with them. They knew me. Yeah, I think there's all of that. I think the biggest difference wasn't. I'm sorry, I'm moving this around because I'm sharing this thing on a flower vase. So the biggest difference though was playing Mike Barnes as a 22-year-old, very, very new actor, and then coming back 35 years later as a guy that's done 2,000 episodes of network television and 25 films. Do you know what I mean? And even exclusive of that, because I know that sounded kind of douchey and I didn't mean it to, but 35 years later, we evolve as human beings. And as you evolve as a human being, you can hopefully bring that evolution to your work as an actor. And so who I am as an actor now, it's as a 57-year-old guy that's been around the block and done a lot of work. There's a lot of stuff that I have to draw on in my emotional Rolodex that I didn't have at 22.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, and also, sometimes when you see some of these movies, you see characters you love, where you see certain movies and then they come back, 20 years later or whatever, and they do the movie again, they do a sequel to it, but it just doesn't have the same vibe, the same lightning to it and stuff. Were you worried about that a little bit coming back?
No, I wasn't. I mean,
Okay.
I wasn't. I mean, look, I'm fortunate that I'm a working actor. Between, coming back from when I did Karate Kid 3 to now, I mean, I've done just such a body of work that has allowed me to grow so much. And from season 5 to 6, you got to remember, I'm on Bold and the Beautiful doing, 100 shows a year, and it keeps you, it's kind of like karate. It's like, when you have a pot of boiling water, when you turn the flame down, it stops boiling. And when you keep the flame at a consistent level, you don't have to get ready. You are ready. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, that does make sense. I think I told you before, I do a little bit of pro wrestling. And the thing that's interesting about that is when you're doing it every day or every weekend, you're training all the time. It's really easy to get it. But if you take a few months off and then you go out there,
dude, even when I take like a month off twice a year, we have a hiatus from Bold and Beautiful. And that first day back, sometimes I'll catch myself and I can tell that mentally I'm not quite there like I am when I'm doing 5-6 shows a week. And nobody's like, we all joke about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got to get over sort of vacation mentality and back into work.
Yeah.
So I think that happens for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, in this, so tell me, walking in here when you did these episodes, and I'm expecting that you're not going to tell me if you're going to be making any more appearances, and you want it to be surprised. But as far as these episodes, was there anything different that you thought about? Anything you wanted to bring out in the character this time that maybe you didn't have in the last season?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first thing I wanted to bring out was losing 25 pounds. I thought that was a bad idea. I was very happy to pull that off. Because, you know, I think, look, if Barnes is coming back as a sensei, you know, he needs to look the part to get, you know, the last time we saw him, you know, Barnes was kind of obviously on something. We don't know what. You know,
Right.
I wanted to come back looking like, here's a guy that probably has started to get back into martial arts and regain the discipline that he had. Because, you know, whatever you say about Mike Barnes, when he was this 17-year-old kid that was a borderline sociopath, he must have had some very special qualities within him to become a national champion. Okay. Right. You know, he had a head of bad wiring and probably no parental guidance and a lot of other stuff, but there was something inside of him that was that of a champion. And I wanted to demonstrate that. I also saw Barnes going back and helping Miyagi-Do as a way of him continuing his redemption tour with Daniel. You know, he never says it again, really. But in my mind, and they never talk about Barnes being compensated for this, I think he did this for two reasons. He did it because he wanted to be of service to Daniel as a way of further helping to pay back for the damage he did all those years ago. And I also think that he did it as a bit of a cautionary tale to the kids. And I'll tell you this. You remember the line when you first see Barnes and he says, "I'm here because, you know, I blew my chance, but I'm here to make sure that you don't do the same thing." That was a line that I put in there. I cleared it with, you know, the director and the producers. But I said, if I can put that line in there, it sets it up that Barnes is really here to do something kind of selfless. Even though he does it in a way that is gruff and like a drill sergeant, he's coming from a place of, I'm going to be really hard on you guys because I know what the Sekai Taikai holds, and I don't want any of you getting hurt.
Yeah. So let me ask you, when you say that line, I blew my chance, in your mind as the guy who put that in there, what was he saying? Was the chance that he could have beat Daniel, or is it
No. The line, I blew my chance, wasn't the one I put on. Put in there. The line was, I'm here to make sure you don't make the same mistake.
Got it.
That's okay. I blew my chance was absolutely getting disqualified for his atrocious behavior at the All Valley tournament. Right. You know, but I wanted to show that here's a guy that's learned from that and is now, you know, willing to humble himself and you know, be a cautionary tale for these kids so they don't make the same mistakes.
So one thing I thought was really interesting about the character was, as he was out there training, he was turning back into the karate bad boy, right? And then kind of snapped out of it, you know, and said, you know, this is, and so tell me, like, was that, I mean, that must have been in the writing, right? But how did you choose to kind of, it seemed very like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, right? And so
I think that after Barnes had his furniture store burned down and presumably lost his wife, I mean, I think it was very emasculating for him. And I think he needed to prove to himself that he still had the intestinal fortitude to be the guy that he knows he is. And, you know, I've always said that Barnes and Johnny Lawrence, they don't dislike each other. And as a matter of fact, they probably like each other. Yeah. But it's kind of like, you know, the two biggest bulls on top of the mountain, they're going to lock horns sooner or later. And I think that, you know, when you saw the circular saws that were going on, those guys were never going to put each other's heads in the circular saw. Right. But it wasn't like that. And I think for Barnes, you know, he made the mistake of telling Johnny that his karate was a joke and got cocky, and then he got caught. Yeah. So Johnny did win in that instance. But you know, once the fight was over, I don't think it was important to Barnes that he didn't win. Sure, he would have liked to have won. It was important to him that he could still square up and give a guy like Johnny Lawrence a good fight, because it proved to him that he still had it. I mean, and once he did that, he was able to let go of maybe some of the ghosts of the past.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is there something was there something remarkable about filming that you thought was, wow, a really cool moment this time?
I mean, I thought so much of it was remarkable. And I really am very humbled and appreciative to have been a part of it. I will tell you, I don't know if this constitutes an answer for what you're saying, but I was pretty happy when I saw that I would be wearing this red gi among a sea of white gis, because I knew right away, I was like, I only got to be pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, me standing there getting filmed in that badass red gi, I mean, it does have to work for me to be intimidating and look cool. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, look, it was great to be able to work with Billy some more and see that competition, where he's like, yeah, you were a champion of the Valley. I was a national champion. It was nice to take moments where ostensibly, you think Barnes is being a bad guy when Daniel's son gets punched, but when he comes in, he's like, Daniel, I'm not doing this because I'm laughing at your son getting hurt. It's because I don't want him to get hurt worse if he goes. This little bit of pain here, get used to it, because it's a whole lot better than if he gets his head knocked off. That's sort of, and of course, Daniel misinterprets it and says, you're turning into bad boy Barnes again. And because Barnes hasn't worked this whole thing out with, getting his sense of manhood back through the fight with Johnny, he's like, maybe if I was that guy, my store wouldn't have burned down. And more importantly, I'd still have my wife.
Right. So,
but I wouldn't have a Rembrandt.
Yeah. I thought for me, it was just so cool. The whole thing with Mike Barnes coming in was cool, but the fact that, man, so now you have Daniel and all three of the villains from the Karate Kid movies all on one side training these kids to take on Cobra Kai. I just thought, man, like that's a cool moment for fans to see all of that together. And then also to see the give and take between Johnny and Mike Barnes, and, to see, because I agree with you. I think those guys are so, Mike Barnes is basically Johnny Lawrence on steroids. You know what I mean? Like he's just an over the top Johnny. And I think it's like, I almost like when you were talking, I was like, yeah, it's kind of like The Rock and Vin Diesel, like they're both super cool guys, but they just can't get along.
They
both want to be the alpha male.
At the end, Barnes and Lawrence do get along. They shake it out. And I thought it was a really, again, this is something I will kind of take credit for, because I sort of added it at the end before Barnes says goodbye. I wanted to bow to Daniel, because I didn't bow to him at the All Valley tournament. I didn't give him that respect. And now it was important to me that, that the character gave him that respect. And So I think Barnes continues just to baffle Daniel. Like every time Daniel thinks he's got this guy figured out, he just does something, just weird and off, and Daniel kind of is perplexed by it.
That's actually something too that I find really interesting about the relationship between Daniel and Mike Barnes, in that in the series, when he runs into Mike Barnes, he has it's like a traumatic response. You know what I mean? Whereas when it comes to Johnny and Chosen, not so much.
Yeah, but I mean, well, he beat Chosen, and yes, he beat Barnes, but he beat him on.
It was a technicality.
But Barnes really, he cut to the core of Daniel and terrified him, and he made him lose. He made him lose his nerve. He made him lose his sense of balance. That necessitated Mr. Miyagi with that classic line. Okay to lose to, what is it? Okay to lose to opponent, must not lose to fear.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of the same thing as Rocky with Clubber Lang. I mean, that guy got into his psyche.
Yeah.
And
Changed him completely. Yeah.
Rocky was able to get past Apollo Creed and become friends with him, because even in the first fight, there was a mutual respect when, Apollo couldn't believe Rocky's getting up.
Yeah.
But if you look at, I know I'm going off on a tangent about Rocky, but the same.
No, it's my favorite movie ever, so please do.
Yeah. But when Dolph Lundgren comes into Rocky's restaurant.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Rocky didn't know if they were going to fight again. Like
Yeah.
they were very, and it was very terse, and it was very, he was very aware of the place that Drago took him to and what it took for him to win, and that it left some permanent scarring, both emotionally and physically. Do you know what I mean? And I think the same with Daniel. I think, Barnes scarred Daniel, and Daniel would be foolish to trust Barnes without a lot of time spent with new Barnes where they could repair the relationship.
Yeah. And it seemed also a little bit like maybe Daniel, when he saw you turning back into that, was like, oh no, we can't have this. You know what I mean? Like this is, I know where this goes. Yeah.
And
it's so interesting. Like, it's got to be interesting coming back. We talked about this a little bit last time you were on, coming back to something that was really kind of your start. You know what I mean? And coming back towards, I'm not going to say the end of your career, but in the middle of like a really long career, like you just said, and be able to revisit this same character. That's got to be a wild, kind of nostalgic thing for you.
It's nostalgic. It's amazing to join a show. Like, I really joined the show at the right time, because had I joined it when it was on YouTube, it was still in its nascent incarnation, where they were still trying to really get an audience and all that. Once it hit Netflix, it was a worldwide phenomenon.
It was funny.
I had to wait till season 5. It really kind of worked out better for me to be a bigger audience.
It's funny you bring that up, because I had another YouTube channel with a friend of mine that we did movie reviews, and we actually got quite a bit of notice, because we both went to the premieres of the set. They did like a whole premiere of the first 2 episodes, where you got to watch the first Karate Kid first 2 episodes, and we reviewed it. And I think we were the only people in the world that must have went and seen because we reviewed it, because nobody knew it was going on.
Right.
And so when it went to Netflix and everybody was kind of pretending like this was some new thing, me and my friend were like, no, we've been watching this for a while now. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are new school, we're old school, kind of a thing. So it's really interesting that was a lot of fun. I loved though that when it went to Netflix, because now everybody got to see how really great the writing was. Now, as someone who's been a part of it, tell me, like, one thing that I've heard through other friends, including my other friend, actually, we had a whole debate about this as we're watching, is that now it's gotten so big. There's so many characters, and it's gotten like into this whole, they kind of joke about how, like, they're like, wait, all of this over a karate tournament kind of thing, but now it's like a worldwide Kumite style like thing. It's just gotten so like over the top. Do you think that that's good, bad, indifferent, just fun? What do you think?
I think that if I had to guess, and I'm putting my producer hat on, Netflix needs to constantly be acquiring new subscribers. And the United States is only one portion of the streaming viewership in the world. And having an international tournament where each country can have a potential champion to root for is very smart from a business aspect. I think that, and I also think that you have to constantly be doing something bigger and more grand to attract an audience, and especially because this is the culmination of the series. But as long as the fundamental philosophy of Mr. Miyagi is maintained, no matter how big and glitzy and everything, I think it works. Okay. I think it's kind of like when you start relying on sizzle over substance, it's kind of like what Miyagi said, never put passion before principle.
Right.
When you start relying too much on, the aesthetics and the visual component, and forget about the core nuclear philosophy that's what everybody fell in love with, that's when it gets dangerous. But there's no chance of that happening, because Hayden, Josh, and John are true fans of the films, and they would never let that happen.
That's what I think why this series, I've said it a bunch of times, as far as 80s nostalgia, you know, I joke sometimes where I feel like I'm like, Hollywood is just pillaging my childhood and taking all these things that worked in the 80s and redoing them and not doing them very well sometimes. But this one, it's like they really hit it on the head. You know what I mean? Like it's like the best fan fiction I've ever seen.
I think I always say that a camel is a horse made by committee. And I think that for the most part, although probably I don't know the inner machinations of the meetings between Netflix and John and Hayden and Josh, but for the most part, they recognized these guys know what they're doing. They know the canon material better than anyone else, and they weren't trying to make decisions like, hey, let's grab this reality star who's hot right now and throw them in a gi and see how that tracks with, some kind of poll or something. You know what I mean? I mean, they let these guys do what needed to be done because they knew these guys knew the material better. And more than that, they're fans. They're, at their hearts, these guys are fans of it, and they love it, and they cherish it, and they protect it, and they feel a responsibility and an allegiance with the responsibility that's entrusted to them, not the least of which is this is the legacy of Pat Morita, who is no longer with us, and they want to do justice to that.
Yeah. I just saw a little thing on I don't remember where I saw it, where they were talking about Pat Morita getting the role, and they were talking about some of the other people that they were looking at and how they really didn't want him. And it's just so interesting when you think, I couldn't imagine anybody else doing it.
Anybody else, right?
Yeah. It's so interesting how that happens. So tell me, like, what's next for Sean Kanan? You got this is wrapped up. You got a book coming out. You've always got something. What's up after that?
Next up is I'm going to the UK, and I'm doing in the UK. I'm going to come back and get back into Bold and Beautiful. Michelle and I are releasing the book. I'm working on this new show, Unsuited, in October. I'll be at Chiller, the Chiller Convention, October. I think it's 24th and 5th in Parsippany, New Jersey. And then I go to Dallas to do a TEDx talk. I'm giving a TEDx talk, which I'm very excited about.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I'm staying busy. And right now I'm also, healing up from this rotator cuff surgery that I had. So I'm trying to balance a lot of different things right now.
Yeah. So, man, that rotator cuff. So that comes on the set. You end up getting injured on the set from that.
No, I didn't get injured in the set. This is a long-standing injury I've had for 35 years.
Oh, wow.
Finally was going to get it taken care of. And they said, if we do the surgery, there's no way you're doing season 6 of Cobra Kai. And they hadn't even asked me to do it yet, but I thought they were going to, right? And so I put the surgery off. So when I did that fight scene, I did it with the torn rotator cuff.
Oh, wow.
And as soon as I got back to LA, I was like, I got to do this, because it really exacerbated the injury and made it so much worse. But now the doctor said the home run, so now I'm just healing up, and hopefully I'll be back training, in the next couple of months.
Awesome. So arthroscopic then?
Laparoscopic, but yeah.
When
I said the same thing, I think orthoscopic is what they used to do, the 80s or something.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm a personal injury attorney, so I got lots of rotator cuff cases and stuff like that.
You do?
So I'm glad it worked out well for you.
Can we get a couple bucks somewhere?
Yeah, right. Not for the long-standing ones. Those are the worst ones. Oh, man. Well, good. Well, that's awesome, man. Staying busy, all that stuff. So, well, it's great to reconnect with you. Where can people find? First of all, your book is coming out. Where can people pre-order it?
Yeah, they'll be able to pre-order it on Amazon in about 2 weeks. It's called Way of the Cobra Couples. They can, of course, get Way of the Cobra or Welcome to the Kumite on Amazon. Also, Way of the Cobra is on Audible, read by me. You can follow me on Instagram, which is at Sean.Kanan or Sean.Kanan, and X, previously Twitter, at Sean Kanan.
Nice.
And I'm not too hard to find.
Yeah, no, you're not. You're doing great things. You're always busy. It's awesome. So awesome to reconnect. Yeah, always great to reconnect with you. For those of you who are listening, just make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and keep watching season 6 of Cobra Kai. I'm hoping you pop back up somewhere. So we'll see.
Like the Chinese farmer said, pal, we shall see.
Yeah, right on, man. Well, it's great talking to you.
Take care of yourself. All right, Josh.
We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Well, bye.